Do you put pride in your hair?
Yeah, man.
Jesus.
I don't know why it's so awesome. If I knew my father, I'd ask him.
Hey,
Jared. Don't fist bump for that. You should be embarrassed. Folks, welcome to the Sports Scientist Podcast. James Hoffman couldn't be with us because he had better things to do. However, Marcos Rodriguez, my always co-hostess with the mostest, he's got a PhD in Peruvian plant biology. He has an MD specializing in psychotropic drugs for soul healing. And he has multiple certifications in shamanic medicine. Marcos,
Yes.
did it ever get tiresome to get that much of an education in spiritual growth?
You know what? It's always humbling because you're always learning stuff about yourself, Michael.
Damn. To my left is Jared Feather. He is an IFPA pro bodybuilder, a master's degree holder in exercise science, and an all-around not that great of a guy, actually. Kind of a piece of shit. And our guest for today, Jared, I suppose you could say, is filling in for James Hoffman, is none other than Renaissance Periodization coach, former professor of exercise science, PhD in sport physiology, former longtime training partner of mine, Chris MacDonald.
That's how pronounced that.
M-A-C, not McDonald. That's a stupid restaurant full of clowns. One clown specifically. Ronald is his name. Chris, my first question to you is, Ronald McDonald comes up at you all wrong. What do you do about it?
The addition from my childhood that was sitting on the bench that you could take a picture on that has legs crossed.
Yeah,
That
pedophile
one,
clown.
Runaway scared.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, there's no need.
Jared, when your family could afford to eat at McDonald's when you were young,
Unbelievable.
was that the place where you went to eat or no?
I don't remember. I'm trying to think about scrounging for quarters in the couch.
Mike knows all about that.
To get like a... Oh.
That was a Jewish joke, everybody.
Oh my God! Never. I would never.
Marcos is racist.
God, no, that's awful, Mike.
That's a good point. You got to get the change, though.
Jeez. Actually, yeah, I think so.
McDonald's. Marcos, your favorite fast food growing up as a child?
I don't eat that poison dog. Nah, I fucking love that shit. Who are you kidding, huh? Got a whole bunch of fucking scientists fucking making that shit taste like sex in your mouth. All the nuggets, Burger King size that shit, Wendy's, bring that bitch too. Whoever you want, all of it. Just put it together in my mouth. Love it.
Oh, referring to Wendy as an actual human being that arrives instead of your food is comical.
I had 13 Big Macs on one
Shut
St.
the fuck
Patrick's
up.
Day in one
No
day.
way.
Yeah. I started drinking at 11 a.m. Finished the night around like
That's
3 a.m. and I had
amazing.
13 Big Macs.
Gnarly shit.
So
I
the
didn't get
near-death
drunk, and I
experience
probably had 200 drinks. And then my gut was...
The Big Macs are like, we
Fucked
got
up.
this.
Yeah.
They got drunk, but you didn't.
I did not.
Damn, dude. What kind of shit did you have after?
For about 2 weeks, a lot of them.
Snake diet.
See? Yeah.
Chris McDonald actually doesn't know what the snake diet is, which is really good. Look it up when we're done, and you'll be.
You need that shit for your soul, dog. You look like
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
That's what it sounds like.
So, our first actual question comes from a huge fan of the podcast, Daniel Jolly. He says, biomechanically speaking, what would be the best way to kick Neymar in the fucking face?
Gentlemen, I don't know if you're well versed in the world of soccer and theatrics in the sport, but
Well, we call it football, cunt.
so I'm assuming the question stems from he's a whiny little bitch and he rolls around on the ground and gives soccer a great name. As former players, it's hard to watch people do that, but
So Chris actually was a collegiate soccer player himself.
yeah, I was average. So watching people that are really talented at this sport do that thing is super disappointing. But I guess while he's on the ground, you want your plant foot right next to the ball. So if you want to hit him in a certain body part, plant foot next to that body part, a strong follow through. And the key is landing on the shooting or kicking leg. If you're landing on the shooting or kicking leg, the follow through was correct. The ball, or in this case, the Neymar, will end up in the direction that you want to send
Parts
it.
of him anyway.
Yeah. Don't kick people.
You don't have to do that, disclaimer here. Jared, when you used to kick people for sport, how did it feel?
So good.
You used to kickbox?
Yeah, Muay Thai.
Right, sorry for the correction.
Muay Thai.
I mean, it's kickboxing. But yeah.
Right, but it's the real shit.
It's the real kickboxing.
Have you ever elbowed anybody in a street fight? Did they walk away?
I mean, like, eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn. Marcos, when you were running away from street fights as a teenager, how hard did you cry?
Disclaimer, I mostly ran from fights.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't want to fight people.
An early Stoic philosopher.
Thank you so much.
The fuck was your question?
You're a bitch. It wasn't even a question. It was simply an accusation. Statement of fact, as I like to say.
Matter of factly.
Derek from the Null comes in and asks, in general, to what extent does a competitive team-based activity, Chris MacDonald, have to be physical before being considered a sport? This is a great question. For example, so-called eSports are becoming more popular now with large followings and prize pools in many team-based video games, sports or not. And it would be interesting to think through how the standard sports science principles of periodization could apply or would not apply in this area to help players become better. An actual serious question from me. Who am I? Derek, thanks for the question. That's a great question. What makes a sport a sport?
Sure.
Chris, you know too much about this, so we're going to save your answer for last while these idiots try to fumble for the correct answer. I'll start as the first idiot. If you're not getting hit in the nuts, if there's no risk of getting kicked in the nuts, not a sport. Marcos?
Golf.
You just said a word.
Why is that a sport?
Oh, why? Why is it a sport? Yeah, that's a good question. If your grandpa can beat your ass at it, is it really a sport? I feel you. I feel you 100%. Jared?
Are we doing the how can periodization be involved, or is it a sport?
Do whatever you want, baby.
I think that was interesting, just because everything runs on those fundamental principles that are in sports science, like
Any adaptive system.
overload. Yeah, any adapted system. So that's interesting. Like, shoot your wad with video games, like 18 hours of video games, leading into your esport, and then deload. Taper off. That's just it's kind of neat.
Now that I think about it, so when Call of Duty 4 came out, Modern Warfare, my brothers and I got up to 74 in the world on the kill board. No big deal. Out of like 3 million people.
Whoa, that's cool. How many Koreans did you beat?
I'm not going to answer that without Charlie here because I feel that's not right.
True. Probably 0. It's probably 73.
But I wonder if we were on a steady supplementation of like Adderall and whatever other caffeine and all the other good shit.
Mushrooms. Be a
10
little confusing.
grams, probably. And then just like the amount of volume you're doing of video games a week, how would that translate to our total ranking?
Yeah, probably up. Mackie.
I imagine that's a very direct.
The sport question is an interesting one because when we used to talk about it all the time in school, it's like, what is a sport or who gets to classify things as a sport? And I think that's because the question's so confusing, then what does it matter whose answer it is? We're all going to make our own decision based on it anyway. Some people think golf is or isn't a sport, cheerleading is or isn't a sport. There's a lot of things in which the outcome is so subjective that the bodybuilding that that you have to question how what's the criteria you want to set forth. So therefore, who cares if it is something that is competitive and that does have some meaning to you and involves any sort of function of the human body, then I think you can apply a lot of the principles that we talk about, deal with of physiology to the outcome. So let's take your eSports. Yeah, you sit around in a chair.
That's video games, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You sit around in a chair and you play a video game, but you can do a lot to periodize your eating so that you are, if nothing else, at least aware enough, or you have the appropriate energy to get through that
high cognitive function.
Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Yeah, so that's probably not the best. So there's probably
Sure.
Professional card players started doing this a little while ago.
No way.
Yeah, so professional poker players sort of got away from the drinking at the table and just kind of eating garbage to actually having nutritionists and actually having sort of a set regimen of eating, a set regimen of exercise to sit down at a table longer and do a thing.
Hey, Marcos, you over here in Chinatown losing mahjong games to fucking 50-year-old ladies.
Yeah.
You piece of shit.
Yeah. So the principles of the things that we talk about. It always works. It always applies. There's no getting around physiology. You can try all you want, and you can argue all you want, but if it's a thing that's competitive and you want to improve at it, there's ways to do so using eating, using training, or manipulating sort of the variables that affect.
Yeah, I mean, you can even train for video games. So, like, for example, you examine your play and you realize that you have certain weak points in your game. You could work to improve those weak points, or you could develop a strategy where your strong points are so good, your weak points almost don't matter because you're not exposable. Sure. Yeah. And then sort of like you go in phases. For example, like training one part of your gaming abilities for a couple of weeks, really getting good at it. Then it gets a little stale. You back that on the back burner, and then you go forward. So on and so forth. I actually had a definition of sport that I like to use, which is a physically based competition in a known and upheld framework of rules. So if the rules randomly change, it's not a sport. If the rules are too varied from game to game, it's not a sport. If it's not physically based, it's not a sport. Like sometimes people will be like, chess is a sport. I'm like, you're an idiot. Okay. Chess is not a sport. Esports are not sports. They're competitions, but they're not based in any physical relevant factor. The interesting differential comes in with, is bodybuilding a sport? Is it's, there's no actual physical shit that you have to do on stage, sort of. Your posing is judged based on how cool it looks. That is actually very similar to dance.
Sure.
And then later on that spectrum is cheerleading, and then even further on spectrum is gymnastics. Yeah. Right? There is a subjectivity to all of those, but it's way more objective for gymnastics. And ice skating is like somewhere between there. Yeah, totally. So bodybuilding can be like that, but I guess you could say bodybuilding is much less of a sport than gymnastics is, because while it is physically based, it's not nearly as physically based directly at the time. But bodybuilding would be much more of a pageant or a show than it is a sport. Like the circus is a show, it's not a sport. There is competition in a bodybuilding setting, but that competition isn't really based on what you physically do there at the time to a huge extent. And then, of course, all the other sports are real sport, like, weightlifting. Like, can you actually pick that thing up? Like, fuck. Can't I just pose around?
Yep.
Trippy question.
I think my favorite part of esports is the 13 and 14-year-old kids from Missouri, Jared
taking shots,
talking shit about my mom and what they're gonna do to her.
Jared, really? That's why you play these games?
Especially after I beat them.
Yeah.
That's putting my headphones on and becoming God.
Yeah.
One of my favorite up and coming esports is the drone flying competition.
That is cool though.
That is just straight up impressive.
It's neat.
Yeah.
They're skilled.
Yeah.
They should go to the military for us.
They probably do.
Yeah.
What about if you get AI to fly the drone even better, and you collect a bunch of money? Mackie, I don't know if you're aware of this, but apparently online poker is having real serious problems because people are plugging in computer programs that play better than the average person and just make a shitload of money. It's really hard to tell them apart from people.
They should have been ahead of the game on that.
Yeah.
It's their fault.
Yeah.
Well,
damn.
Good luck trying to fix it.
I love having Mackie on the show. It's a lot of blame. This is great. Dr. McDonald says, Fitbot. I hope he's not an actual bot. Have you used Catapult or other data metric systems to assist with athletic development, being as you coached a variety of collegiate sports for a long time? If so, what are your thoughts regarding relevant metrics you find most valuable? I have my second internship utilizing the system for American football athletes, and I want to learn more. Thank you. What a polite question from a robot.
Yes, it was polite. Answer's not going to be the best. So in our experience, kind of using any sort of data tracking systems with team sport athletes mostly, but with any athletes, there's a number of things you have to sort of take into account. The first thing is the tool appropriate for sort of the outcome? So just because somebody has something fancy and new and uses GPS and you set up this field and you can monitor heart rate and volume of training and speed changes, is that useful for you? So what you have to kind of do is answer that question first. And it's a hard question to answer because coaches and teams and people outside of the science side of things don't really care too much. They care that either something gives them information that they need and or they can show recruits that they have this fancy tool. So once you get past that...
We put laser beams on people, man.
Sharks with lasers on their heads. So once you get past that, you have to say... all right, so for my American football team, does all this information matter? Or does it matter that I have to spend these hours upon hours upon hours of mining the data, even though the system, kicks it all out and I don't have to write macros to figure it out? Do I want to spend these hours of mining this data, thankless hours of mining this data to produce this simplified piece of information on a sheet of paper that a coach likes or understands?
That's useful.
Yeah, to them, right? That they really, in the end, don't even care about because they don't feel like their team was getting enough work in. Sorry, great. So why did I just do this, or why do we spend this money on this tool? So the question I think that has to be answered first is the tool giving you something you need? What we found out in our time as sports scientists was the more you simplify something, or the closer you get to a simplified outcome that is useful for both you and the coaches, athletes, whoever else you happen to be working with, the better. So what we found out using a number of things, Catapult or GPS type systems included, or just heart rate monitoring systems included, is that the more simplified the metric, the better. So we ended up just using heart rate monitoring. We didn't need the GPS system because we found that the GPS system correlated so well to the variation in heart rate that the variation in heart rate then told us what we needed to know.
So basically, if they have a total number of heartbeats per practice that's really high, then they worked really hard.
Or when it's happening. So if practice was hard when it was supposed to be hard, practice was easy when it was supposed to be easy. Same thing for in the weight room. It works in the weight room too. We can see when they're actually mid-set. We can see when they're actually doing their first or second exercises of the day versus the third, fourth, and fifth when it's more accessory and less taxing on the system. So we can parse that out if we look at the information. What we then found out was heart rate variability and total difficulty. That told us the same thing as getting an RPE from an individual. So we just got numbers from our athletes. So we explained over a long period of time, this is what a 1 and a 10 means. Tell me where you are on a scale of 1 through 10. That number, that session RPE, ended up telling us the exact same thing as the heart rate, which was basically telling us the same thing as GPS monitoring system. So if you want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, if you teach somebody how to give you a difficulty report and then add in something like heart rate, that's plenty of information about difficulty of session, about variation in session difficulty, and saves you lots of money in the long term.
Yes, Chris, but what would you say to someone who would respond to you with, yes, but the machines, and then they would say, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop.
You say, make art.
Did you know who he just quoted? Marcos?
Takes a while.
The T-50 from the prequel to Terminator.
False, but close. That was a Terence McKenna quote. I'm not joking.
And
I believe you.
That's how you confuse the machines.
Terence McKenna, who is
The godfather of psychedelics.
Late.
To some degree.
pretty much, did a whole lot of drugs, was asked after giving a mostly nonsensical speech to a crowd of Californians about how do we fight the machines. And he said, and I quote, "In a word, make art."
And it was followed by rousing cheers.
Which was a cheering moment. And then they asked to explain. He said, "You make art because it's incomprehensible to the machines." And I think that he really thought if there was androids like policing us, that they would like short out and smoke out if you just made
have
art.
you heard his lecture on singularity and all that shit?
Yeah.
It's fucking trippy shit because some of that shit's happening right now.
If I had to ask people about the technological singularity, I would ask for Kurzweil's opinion first.
Absolutely.
And Terence McKenna's opinion if I was on 5 grams of mushrooms. I guarantee you that shit would make a whole lot more sense than that.
Kurzweil still has his dad, like his dad's body's frozen somewhere now.
Kurzweil's the fucking
That's
shit.
awesome.
Yeah.
He also invented the first synthesizer for Stevie Wonder.
He invents everything.
He,
Yeah, you're right.
He like graduated from Harvard when he was like 18 or something ridiculous.
So awesome.
He's
Or
from
MIT
Queens.
or some shit. Yeah, of course
He's
he is. Of course he's one of us. Fucking
We're
kidding
about
me.
to pass the horizon. We don't know what's going to happen next.
So sweet. Singularity. I'm with Terence McKenna. I think he had it all figured out.
When you're taking 5 grams every other day, then
Yeah. I remember one of Chris's, Chris Younga's, you've never met our friend Chris, you'd get along great. One of his favorite Terence McKenna quotes was like, he was like giving a tour of his garden, and he's like, "This plant is from, Peru, and it's got these crazy psychedelic properties." And then he gets to one plant, he's like, "Now this plant doesn't really have any psychedelic properties, but doesn't it look neat?" You're just like, Terence, you literally never disappoint. Thank God that you're real. So in any case, moving on to a very related question. Bach Nguyen asks a fucking pertinent question. Do the characters living in the movie Cars have life insurance or car insurance?
Shit.
That's nuts.
Marcos?
Fuck. Well,
See? Now you need to think about this. This shit's complicated.
you got 5 grams on you. I'm about to figure it out right now.
That's right. Jared?
Neither. They're characters in a.
Oh my god, you lifeless piece of shit. I'm going to tear that one apart.
Yeah, you're welcome.
They are simply photons on the side of the screen and not technically actual characters.
The bringer of truth and crusher of hope.
Well, they are technically characters now in a different dimension that we've created. The creators have created.
It's
I don't
not
know about
dimension. It's not dimension.
Alternate reality.
I'm going to crush that too.
I'm not sure if that's the case.
Take 5 grams.
Yeah, for sure. Jared, you need to take 5 grams.
I can't.
Mackie,
You can.
car insurance
You're
or
gonna.
life insurance?
It requires a different type of insurance. That's the you
I
just
would
the,
agree.
yeah you just have somebody create insurance for that in between life form this
Really?
consciousness in a car, whatever it
Maggie,
is.
there's a reason we have these fucking brilliant people on the podcast is you never fucking disappoint. That wasn't so. If you're an insurance auditor, you'd be like, technically, I'd have
It's
to create a different line
AI.
item here.
That would be AI
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah, unless they were evolved cars.
They're
You don't
AI.
really know.
I feel.
Are they really?
I feel like a generic
Have you
AI
seen-
sort of evolves.
Have
every
you
so
seen the
often,
new
whereas those cars don't.
Jurassic Park movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
They were trying to decide if the animals, if they fell under some sort of pre-existing condition in which humanity had to protect them. But they weren't there. They weren't animals that got protection because we made them.
Yeah.
So they were this new thing that they were trying to figure out how to classify and therefore to not save.
One of my favorite quotes ever on the subject was from the movie with Will Smith where he fights robots.
Oh, iRobot.
iRobot. That's a Jewish accent for you, by the way. Robots. The robots with the arms. Aye.
So much metal being wasted.
How much do those cost anyway? Hey, can you do my taxes? I'd never trust a robot to do them. So, anyway, iRobot, the guy, the CEO of the robot company, when one of the robots toasted like the main designer, he's like, being that these robots are not alive, they cannot be criminally charged, and this at best falls under the category of an industrial accident. I was like, oh my god, I want to intern under you. Amazing.
Didn't he then die by the hands
Yeah,
of
of
the robot?
course. No, he actually the main one.
Threw him out of the window or something.
No, that was the other guy. This guy,
Yeah, but I disagree.
the queen bitch robot killed him.
You're right though.
Super AI.
Queen Bee.
I don't think he's right.
Lil Kim.
Yeah. There's a new Queen
malfunction.
Bee. What's her name? She's one of, she's Dominican.
She just had a
Cardi
kid.
B. Really? She had a child?
Do you want me to tell you what it's called?
No.
It's called...
Yes, I
Because
do.
my girlfriend on the
I
way
do.
here, she was like,
Yes.
"Please
I vote
tell
yes.
Mike, Cardi B had a baby, named it Culture with a K."
It's like Vulture with a K.
I like you.
She's like, I didn't mean culture. I meant vulture.
You know what? You'd be surprised how many people get upset when I'm like, I can't stand Cardi B. They're like, how could you?
She's a
great.
stripper.
I'm like, she's not like a
Never
real
heard a
human.
song. Not one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's for the best.
Wait outside for 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, I have other questions. Says
Am I right, ladies?
Christopher Conant to the 4. Okay, I have other questions, but I would really like to ask is, do you believe or have you used Advocare ever?
Oh, the supplement peddling pyramid scheme company.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, I haven't used it. No.
Oh, so
I'm
you don't
familiar
know if
with
it's
it.
amazing. Jared,
Right, correct.
Advocare?
I don't know.
Marcos?
Viagra care?
I think we all realized.
Have you used Viagra before, Marcos? So you got a problem with your
Mike, I got to
manhood?
get on that, by the way.
Oh, you want some Viagra? That's a perfectly fine thing to talk about on a podcast. Jared's dick doesn't work. You don't have to edit that
Well,
out.
that's why you're single.
Yep. Turns out Jared has been broken up with
Limp as a feather.
every time. That's why every girlfriend he ever had broke up with him because his dick was malfunctioning.
Go ahead.
You guys know, like,
It's fucked up, guys.
when you like play paintball, but your gun jams in the first round and you just get shot a lot. Jared's love life.
My love.
Wow.
I'm sure he would get great advice in the gym by some old dude. He's like, yo, young buck, what you need to take? You need to take some maca, some long jack, tribulus.
Tribulus.
Yes, Tribulus. I had a
Bulgarian
Tribulus
ginseng.
question the other day.
Makes
Yes,
sense, yeah.
You have
Client-
Tribulus
from a
question,
client.
really?
Yeah.
What'd they say?
Should I take Tribulus, basically?
And you said emphatic yes, I assume.
I said, no, just no, there's minimal, if any, legitimate
And
research
they're like,
to back any of that.
Men's Fitness says there's
Sure.
a guy here who's jacked who says he takes 5,000 milligrams every day. Why can't I take it? And
can.
you're like, but the research says, and they're
Right.
like, but this guy looks great. And you're like, well, it's not the steroids and the GH that he's taking, then
No.
it's the Tribulus.
Or the
No.
training, or the eating,
No,
or
none of
everything
that
else.
stuff.
Yeah. Or just happens to have more testosterone receptors. Or these things that we can actually artificially manufacture. It's just the way it is sometimes. And it's just hard to accept that. But I think there should be a podcast here specifically about how and why research works and how and why you should evaluate research. I think that's the downfall.
That's the great divide now in fitness with guys like you and the interweb. Yeah.
Well, that's the downfalls. Or yeah, so you start to investigate science. We'll call it science. But the point is, how do you investigate it? How do you best analyze it? And that's a hard thing to do. But I think a talk that needs to happen over and over and over again.
Listen, man, I'm just going to do Michael O'Hearn fucking supplement program because he's natural and that's all I want.
What does he take?
Probably Maca and Tribulus.
Nice.
Rubbed it on his eyes.
Damn, it's hardcore. Fit Guy Bry says, at RP Dr. MacDonald, working with teams, I'm sure there's a diversity of personalities you train. How do you approach coaching an introverted person who is hard to read or get information from? Thanks.
So I've been away from that specific coaching arena for a while now. So
You got a memory, don't you?
yeah, I gotta remember. So introverted people are interesting. They are, especially in a team setting, because everybody is not introverted. So what you end up finding out is the more you sort of, you not coddle them, but address them individually, not in front of other people. So the team, let's say we're in the weight room, we're lifting, and we used to train in groups of 2 or 3. And Carter will remember this, another one of our coaches here at RP. He and I were strength coaches together, and we would go and speak to our, in this case, for this particular team, our foreign athletes who weren't very familiar with the weight room and also
And generally dumber, because foreign people are stupid.
All right, so that was said. So we would is what we do is we would talk to them, ask them individually, not in front of other people, but in that group setting. How's the lift going? How do you feel?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Listen, what are you doing?
God damn it, boy, you don't speak American?
So when we would address them that way, it would make them more comfortable. They would know, okay, I can ask and speak to them. So then they would come to us and start asking questions. So it's more of a, not so much a coddling, but addressing them and making sure that they understand terminology, make sure that they understand how and why and what you're doing. And if you do that to them in front of other people or in a setting in which they're, let's say, put them on blast. Yeah, it makes them dig into their holes even more. So I don't use the terminology right, man. It's
Why is he looking at me?
That's so fucked up. That's because he's ethnic or whatever. You think he
no, because he side-eyed me. He
has a PhD in ebonics.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You're right. Good use though, fam. You good.
Appreciate you. So no, but yeah, that's, if you just take care to make sure that they understand and they know you care that they understand.
So how do you address that intercession? Like they keep making mistake in team practice. Well, you have to tell them they're messing up.
Yeah. So
they'll keep doing it.
So the good thing about what on my side of coaching was I never had to deal with that. So when I was a strength coach or a sports scientist, it was mostly the warm-ups or places in arenas which I didn't have to call them out or it was never my place to
for sure
to do that. That I understand that part being difficult, and I wouldn't know how to do it.
You ever chew out any of your athletes for not complying for stuff?
No,
I remember you chewing out your athletes for not complying to stuff.
The tennis team?
Players. Fond memories.
Yeah.
Mackie, why don't you tell us that story?
Which I don't remember which one. We had a lot of tennis players that were sort of didn't think that lifting was important, and our situation was unique in that we had a team that was consistently the best, and they never failed. No matter what you did or how they were trained. And it was pretty poor prior to us getting there. They always won. They were always in the NCAAs. They were always a conference champion. So we show up and we're like, we can probably help. And they're like, yeah, can you? We win all the time. So, sort of getting lifting into their head as being something that's important, or consistent resistance training being something that you can supplement their normal training with, was difficult in that we couldn't even get them to show up. They didn't even want to come to training, and their coach didn't care because, it wasn't as important to them. So we had a few conversations in very plain, blunt English that they just thought it was funny. Every time we yelled at them, it was a joke. Or every time that we said, "No, you're not doing the lift correctly. Let me show you." We would get basically the response was, "You mess with the bull, you get the horns." And they thought that was the funniest little phrase in the world that they could ever say, and that's what they would yell back at us.
Really?
Yeah. So there were a few times where basically like, "You want horns?" was what we would respond to them with. And
you want horns? Because I'm horny as fuck right
that's
now,
right.
son. You hear?
That's right. But
you hear? You want horns? I got horns.
But I don't remember yelling, Mike. I don't remember doing much of that. I remember trying to explain to them while running 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles wasn't good for a tennis player. Trying to explain that to the coach, or trying to explain, all right, this is not a good time to have hard practice. But I don't remember yelling, man. I was a pretty introverted coach.
Damn, that's deep. Seb Zamora 95, a gentleman I can only assume was born in 1995, says, how do you approach keeping athletes' energy levels high when training a high-volume strength and conditioning program, mostly conditioning? So let's say they're training a lot of sport practice, a lot of conditioning, tips for having high energy levels, nutrition, recovery.
Crystal meth.
First tip is you probably shouldn't be doing that often. So there are times in which training for the sport and their conditioning resistance training are both supposed to be difficult. But if you're periodizing everything correctly, those times are very specific and not frequent. So that's the first thing, is that shouldn't happen that often. But you should know when it's going to happen. You should plan for it happening, and you should come out of that training the appropriate way. But with that said, fueling is super important. So you modify how you fuel an athlete when you're going into super high volume training.
You eat more fats, right?
Yes. You just eat more fat. You actually get butter, and you melt it.
Okay,
and then you pour it into their shake.
You pour it into an avocado. You eat it that way.
Yeah.
Where do the bacon bits go?
Over the butter.
No, you start. You want to manipulate. Carbohydrates is the easiest thing to sort of manipulate, both during training. So the first thing you want to think about is, all right, while I'm exercising, I need to ensure I'm at the appropriate energy level. Sure. And then coming out of training, make sure that post-training supplementation meals are at the appropriate and high enough level. You need to understand that athletes at any level that are doing those things are relatively high level, and they can handle a good amount of food. They can handle large amounts of intake, and maybe a difficult thing to get across to them, but it's going to be super important.
What proportion of your athletes, if you were like eat more carbs, just had no clue what the fuck carbs were in any meaningful sense?
Pizza, bro.
I don't know. 50% probably.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. And then how would you use that sort of as a teaching moment to be like, here's what carbs are? Would you like have a list of common foods, or would you try to give them a more molecular explanation, or what?
Yeah, no, you want to keep it as basic as possible. So a lot of times we would mimic sort of the talks you would give to your teams, or just have you come and talk to our teams, and kind of explain to them at a very layman's terms. This is, eat this thing at this time. You want to give athletes super, super basic information. They don't care about macro numbers. They don't care about percentages. They want to know, all right, man, just tell me what I want to eat, or what I can eat, or what the list of things I can pick from. Just give me that. And if you keep things less specific with them, or bring it into a less specific sort of environment, then you're going to get a much better retention, and therefore, hopefully, a much better athlete.
It's a really good idea. Jared, you ever notice that? Like, we get so deep into the macros game that people don't even know what foods you're fucking talking about?
Sometimes. I guess I deal mostly with the bodybuilding community.
Yeah, but when you don't, you ever find that?
Totally. Yeah.
Well, like people ask you tips for like nutrition at the gym.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I eat a lot of carbs.
In City, last time I came up here, and you were like, Jared, he didn't understand a fucking word you said.
Yeah, Jared.
And I thought about it, and I was like,
and this guy's like, so like training, like, what should I do? Like more weight every week? And Jared's like, well, volume intensity manipulation is really. I was like,
it wasn't that extreme.
Aaron, shut up.
It wasn't that extreme.
This guy's like, All the guy walked into a wall.
All the guy heard was volume up on his headphones. He's like, got it.
I was like, gotta turn up the music, crank it away. Marcos, I want some stories from you about New York clientele and the degree to which they understand what you're saying when you're talking nutrition, and useful strategies you found actually be successful telling people how to do simple modifications of their diets to lose weight, for example. And Mackie, I'd like to hear from you about this as well. Clients, because you people like, you got a personal training client, right? And they're like, I need to lose weight. I want to get lean. I don't know. They're like a New Jersey Jewish woman.
Well, no. Well,
what do I eat? And what you say right there can be pretty important.
Absolutely, 100%. And they're paying you the big bucks, so you want to have a legit answer. But
don't put any poison in your body.
Bro, seriously, bro, that's it. Don't eat that shit. But I forgot who I was telling last week when you and Nick first told me you guys were creating RP, and I was like, that's dumb. It's just basic fucking nutrition. Why would you guys do that? I'm glad you guys did that, though.
Thanks.
It worked out well. But because to me, like, it was like, basic good nutrition is just pretty clear cut. But I guess for people who have a certain lifestyle, it's like oblivious. It's like, oh, yeah, cool. 10 a.m. session, walks in. What you eat today? Nothing. Okay, cool. What you have for dinner? I don't know. I went out, had like 8 drinks. Wait, maybe it was 12. Oh, no, but I ate clean. I had the steak and the branzino, and like I didn't have dessert though, but I ate like 2 potatoes. All right, cool. And you're probably gonna do it again today? Yeah.
Got a client dinner.
I'm gonna go out and drink, and it's like, oh hey, what do I have to do to like eat? And at that point, I'm just like, just fucking do whatever the fuck you want. That's it. That's my nutrition advice for you people.
One of the seminars that we did internationally, one of the personal trainers was talking about a very difficult client of his who did a lot of client meetings. And the guy insisted to his trainer that he has to have like at least 8 beers per night because he has nightly client meetings.
100%.
And
but
that's the norm. But you don't have to have 8 beers. He was like, at least 8. I'm like, what?
I need
you
to
just
have
want to be a
least
lazy piece of shit that drinks
a bottle of wine at least at dinner, especially with like the finance guys or whatever they're drinking. And
how hard is it to just say like, hey, you guys, I'm kind of watching my weight, so I'm just going to be drinking sparkling water, or not even tell them shit and just feed them alcohol?
I don't know. I've never been in those situations, but it does get fucking redundant and annoying. So
what are your tips?
I say eat clean. They're like, what's that mean? And I'm like, all right, well, what do you like to eat? I like eggs. Eat egg whites. I hate that. And I'm like, you just said you liked eggs. It's hard. It depends on the person. It varies, but
so you basically just try to get them to list kind of the foods they usually eat and sort of reduce the fat and calorie content. And
or my favorite is when I get pictures of like, oh, this is what I decided to eat, and it's a fucking like a BLT or some shit, and it's like the dude that's like very overweight, and it's like, fuck, man, what the fuck?
A lot of hate.
You can't eat fucking chicken and rice. That's boring.
Yep, because you eat for your entertainment. Mackie, useful tips to tell humans how to eat food.
Yeah.
Good luck.
The hardest sort of point to get across, I think, is always that doing this isn't hard. Well, it isn't hard in that we know what to do. What's hard is doing it over and over and over. Like we were just talking about, it's boring. It's super boring. It's super monotonous. It's super tedious at times, but it's not hard to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to sort of make trade-offs in life. A great man that we learned under for a long time would tell us about trade-offs all the time. It's like, you can do all this stuff. You just got to pick the shit you're giving up to do it.
Yeah.
So what do you want more in life? Do you want more to look like this thing, this outcome, this version of yourself?
Jared Feather.
Right? Do you want to look like this, or do you want to have an excuse, or do you want to have these things that are more important to you? And if you aren't sort of honest enough with yourself or honest enough with understanding the process, then there's no supplement, there's no special cream, there's nothing else in this world that's going to work as well as doing this boring shit that is mentally taxing at times that you just have to do. And if you're not willing to do it, and you're not willing to make that small sacrifice, then you're not going to have the outcome.
Yep.
That's all it literally is.
It's self-mastery. Just fucking try harder to be better. But if you're not trying, then what the fuck? I'm not a fucking magician. I can't fucking shave 20 pounds off you.
Why do you touch? I keep telling you my nipples are erogenous. You continue to touch them. It's making me weird. I don't know if I'm in love with you or not.
I've only done it 37 times today. I've been counting. I'm about to be 38.
Scott, sound guy.
About to be 38.
Can you help me?
Grab the other one, Scott. Scott, look him in the eyes. And tell him how clean you eat and how dirty you eat. Okay, next question.
Don't snub your nose at me, Mackie. I was looking to you for...
Mike smells. Not Mike, the Mike.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah. Well,
Josh Vogel.
almost like mac and cheese. Like, it's not bad. It's like making me hungry.
Okay, dope.
All right.
Josh P. Thomas asks, what advice could you give a second-year sport and exercise scientist with a goal of a career in the strength and conditioning industry? Things you've learned along the way that a textbook never taught you. Read more textbooks would be my advice. But
Oh boy, the strength. Well, I wasn't in it that long, so my career in the specific strength and conditioning, or as a sports scientist, was short-lived. But there's a lot of things that books won't teach you about dealing with sort of people. In that, most everyone that you encounter, like we talked about with athletes earlier, are not going to care about the minutia that you learn. They're not going to care about the calculations of how and why we get to a volume number, or what volume load in training is, or why their volume load in training is too high, or why they need to eat a certain amount of food at a certain meal. What they care about is making things as simple as possible and giving them as simple an outcome or a variable or a measure as possible. If you can take all the stuff that you learn and try to condense it into things that are sort of palatable to people that aren't scientists, then you're going to get yourself much further in this field. That's the art of coaching, I guess. It's something that you have to just sort of feel your way through. So yeah, you gotta have a textbook, and you've got to have all that stuff first. And you've got to understand periodization and programming and why they're different, and when you need to, apply certain principles, and when certain principles are more important than others. But if you can't deal with a human being, if you can't have human interactions, if you can't take this really confusing information and condense it into something that they can absorb, then you're gonna have a hard time sort of bridging the gap between your side of things and the coaches or the athlete's side of things. That just takes time.
100%. I know a lot of folks that know stuff that can't speak to human beings or make knowledge digestible for regular humans. Like, hey, do this. Why? Simple reason. Another why, a little bit more complicated of a reason. You should have the potential as a coach to explain everything down to the details, but you don't have to do that the first time. One of the things, like, we used to train new coaches, one of the most difficult problems is over explanations, as like just people just want to be like, oh, like as soon as their client's like, so on the squat, you're like, great, here's the biomechanics of the entire squat. It's 900 pages. And you're like, right. Move your hips back more. Got it. Right. That would have been that simple. But then if they were like, so why move your hips back more? You're like, well, a little joint angle here, a little moment arm there. And if they like that, if they seem satisfied with it, great. If not, you can always refer them to the textbook. Jared, did you ever used to over explain shit when you started out?
Yeah.
That made you no friends, did it, buddy?
Yeah. Maybe no friends. Yeah, I guess so.
Do you have friends now?
No.
Yeah, you do.
Only acquaintances.
You have me, buddy.
And Marcus.
Our anti-Batman club.
You guys are pieces of shit. Mackie, these people don't like Batman.
He's a piece of shit.
He was just rich, right?
Yeah.
We got another one.
Dude. Boom.
Get off the show.
1 + 2 = 3, bitch.
Sports Scientist has been canceled due to technical difficulties. Next question from Curtis Ahmed. Do athletes from playing sports have a better potential of becoming bodybuilders?
Yes.
Why?
But the mental side of things. They have a bit of a better understanding of sort of the what it takes, the day-to-day, the minute-to-minute sort of you give everything else up in place of, is it going to affect my training positively or negatively? It's the first thing you think about. It's the last thing you think about. And people that aren't used to that aren't used to that. And if you're not used to that, man, that's a big mental mind fuck first time it hits you in the face. Yeah. So an athlete is going to be a bit more predisposed mentally to dealing with the rigors of bodybuilding. Jared?
Who are we comparing them to? Just a regular...
Humans. Mortals.
Regular humans.
What's a regular?
It's not black and white. Depends.
What's a regular human? I don't know what that is. Show it to me.
You wouldn't be able to detect their power levels. You might not even see them.
I think it just.
What do you guys think about, do sports make you tougher, or do the sports simply select for who's genetically the toughest already?
Both.
Both, Marcos, Jared?
Yeah, for sure. A little bit of both. Mostly the genetics.
Mostly the selection, then.
Absolutely. I'm definitely more in favor of the selection.
So people who do really well at soccer are the ones who stuck around because they were hard-nosed pieces of shit.
Absolutely.
And then they start bodybuilding, they're still hard-nosed pieces of shit, and they run through it like they do everything else.
Well, sometimes those same people are paired with the shittiest adherence to dieting principles. So they do really bad in bodybuilding.
Yeah. Mackie? How much is it selection versus training?
I guess it depends on the level of athlete you start looking at. So if you're looking at a very high level, professional, that's going to be both. They are literally both. The genetics or the lack of want to would have teased them all out by that point.
Look at Phil Heath.
Yeah.
It's all drugs.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Basketball.
You start to work yourself backwards, though. Then you start to see less of it being both and more probably of the genetics. So you start to look at collegiate athletes.
Yeah.
And you start to back out in high school athletes. Then it's the genetically predisposed are just better.
Yeah.
And they're just going to be there at that point.
Even at the high level, it's still genetics because it's an intrinsic motivation and will to want to do that. So I still think it's...
Sure. Agreed. Yeah.
Even some of the willpower is genetic. A lot of it. Not all of it, for
Most
sure.
of it.
Maybe. Yeah, it depends on how you look at it, but some of it definitely very highly genetic. Yeah. That's an interesting people say, is it genetic versus hard work? The ability to do hard work consistently, it's also highly genetic. It's a mental factor that correlates to your genes. So,
yeah.
There's also some dumb luck involved that you decided to pick the sport that you were predisposed to, which is always odd.
Yeah, or didn't get killed in a car accident, or didn't get an injury. A lot of the would-be best athletes just got hurt. I think a lot of what you see in elite sports is a resistance to injury is what we're really selecting for.
Sure.
Like, to get to a level where you're squatting 900 pounds, you had to not get hurt squatting 600, 700, 800 pounds, or at least not hurt so bad that you couldn't do it anymore. So a lot of the people that are at the very top, they're very injury resistant, which is interesting because a lot of their programs end up being killer crazy programs that would hurt
most
everyone
other
else,
people are
but they
hurt,
just not of that breed.
Yep.
So, Marcos, you knew a lot of guys that came up and did really well in bodybuilding, yeah?
Yeah.
What were they like back in the day?
When I met the two guys that I'm thinking of, they were always pretty jacked to begin with, but they were resilient as fuck. They worked hard as shit, trained around all their injuries.
So they were relentless then?
They were.
That sure helps. Especially in bodybuilding. Talent doesn't do dick for you when you have to do a 16-week diet. At that point, you got to just have something pushing you along.
Thackeray Mubarak and Victor Martinez are guys that have always overcome whatever shit they've been hit with, as far as I know. Those guys wouldn't fucking stop, no matter what.
It's a crazy idea to think about that, though. To have that crazy level of mental capacity. So it does not matter. Nothing else matters to them.
Yeah.
Everybody's got at some point something. They are the ones where it doesn't matter. This is what I am. This is what I identify as. This is what I do.
It's interesting when you talk to people who have had promise and have been derailed by various things to think of what kind of things derail them. And some people just can't wait for an excuse to derail them. I had one guy that I was training way back when who had and I'm not joking, he had Phil Heath muscle bellies. The shape of the muscles was absolutely absurd. And he was gaining muscle super quick. He stopped trying to get big because he didn't want to buy new clothes.
Tough life. That's a real tough life.
I guess bodybuilding is such an arbitrary, weird thing anyway, and there's no sense in pushing someone who doesn't want to go. But it's just people would have had to worry about him as a competitor. Can you imagine training for your first, natty show, and you see that guy training in the gym, and you're like, oh my God, that guy's going to crush me if he ever enters a show. But he's never going to enter a show. He doesn't have something you have, and even though you look at him, you can't tell. He's never going to be a competitor of yours.
Where's that guy now?
He's dead. He died from his arms getting too big. In his sleep, they stopped the blood flow to his heart.
Eating soup.
He drowned in his soup.
Yeah, no, his arms got too big from eating soup.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
not drowned in soup. different turn.
Rest in peace, Soup Boy.
Yeah,
Soup Boy.
He's dead.
It's tough.
Next question. The last question for this evening, folks. D. Darix says, RP Dr. MacDonald, being an upcoming sports scientist myself, I was wondering what you think are topics/concepts that are important for physique and strength athletes that are underexposed in research.
I think that's a question we probably could all answer. I mean, topics or things that are...
Well, just pick a topic that you think needs to be researched more. I mean, clearly the answer is all of them, but like one that you're like, oh boy, I wish people looked into this in the field.
I think that we fall back on it being something we already know so much about, but I think that sort of the importance of timing, of both training and eating around an individual's day, circadian rhythm, whatever you have. We think we have a pretty good grasp on it. There's really good research.
Stuff is really unknown at this point.
Yeah. But eating, I mean, what Dr. Ivy's stuff was pretty informative when it came out, and that's sort of like, then it kind of tapered off with the complexity of the research that he was putting out there. You have timing information coming out now that is good research, but it lacks a lot of external factors that sort of that early research didn't, and it makes these big, massive claims about protein and protein importance or timing and timing importance without including all of the other factors. So it's research that gets these really good meta-analyses and produces very, very, from a science side, sound results. But I think that it's lacking some more complex information. The mixing of macronutrients together, why we eat certain macronutrients at the same time as others, sort of that kind of stuff is a bit lacking and can be expounded upon, from a lot of that early research and added to some of that more modern stuff. Guys that you talk to all the time.
Sure.
So,
Jared?
It's lacking in research?
Just like where do you want to, like, if you had a research fund, where would you point it?
I would just point people to actually learn physiology.
Jared, you're not answering the question. You're just talking about the same fucking hammer you bang no matter what we start talking about.
I'm gonna bang the fuck out of that hammer because people need to fucking be more logical. Shit pisses me off. PubMed warriors. Fuck that shit.
Okay. All right.
Learn about the body.
Okay, so basically, before looking at PubMed studies, learn basic physiology so you can actually understand them and contextualize them.
Not just basic either.
Advanced.
Diving into that shit and trying to refute people like you online or like him online. You better know some shit. Instead of saying, well, the data shows this over here.
I love that part, actually. That's my favorite part.
Pisses me the fuck off.
These guys.
Marcos?
I would say the mental health aspect.
What, you dealing with some shit, homie?
Yeah, what's up?
No, but half these kids who compete who are like fucking narcissistic, egocentric fucking fucks should probably not be taking other things and maybe not dieting as harsh as they do, or maybe know how to diet and all that other stuff. If that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's it. I never thought of that. Well,
yeah,
it wouldn't have been one of the first things. That's
I don't think it's for everyone. Man. Well, no, just you have again guys like you who are goal driven. It's like, all right, I'm going to compete in about 4 months. This is my timeline. This is what I'm going to do. Instead of just like, yo, bro, you should take some fucking Anavar, some fucking Winstrol, fucking step on stage. Dude has a fucking nervous breakdown, kills his dog, breaks up with his girl. I don't know, not you.
Jared, you killed your dog?
Oh, dude.
I like cats so much.
The devil spoke through him anyway.
Yeah.
Sam.
I feel you on that, Marcos. Yeah. Sam, Summer of Sam or whatever. Okay, I was joking. That wasn't the last question. I have a last question for everyone in the group, and then we'll close off with this. How important is the Dark Lord Satan in your day-to-day life?
I think he's just misunderstood.
Beautiful answer.
Lucifer. It's a pretty name.
Yeah.
I think he's just a dude who's just,
just trying to get by.
He just thinks differently than all the other fucking...
He's unique.
Dick riding angels.
Exactly.
Dad, you're the best. He's like, yo, man, he's not really that great, yo. Like,
He's just trying to hook you up with the realness. Right. Jared?
Trying to put you on, fam.
Yeah. I'm composed of the same molecules as he is. I would cease to exist without him inside of me.
The devil.
Mm-hmm.
Beelzebub?
Yes.
Mephistopheles?
How many names does the devil have? It's a lot of names.
I think Mamon. I think there's a whole bunch of different demons and shit. I don't know. There's like, 72 demon lords right here?
Oh.
Mackie, we've been pissing away our time learning
Wrong
the
Bible,
wrong
sorry.
things.
What is Christopher
Wrong
Hitchens
Bible.
taught me nothing.
Yeah, for real.
I thought he taught me everything.
Well, let's get to the demon names really quick. Demon names.
Don't you miss Hitchens?
I do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Everyone
I
does.
still watch his shit on YouTube all the time.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the dog.
Oh, goddamn. List of theological demons. Wikipedia. Marcos, you ready?
Are they all
Holy shit, there's an alphabet.
Are they all Christian
An alphabet?
based?
Agares. Amon.
Okay.
Abaddon. Whoa, I know a guy named Abaddon online.
wow.
God damn, son, you know your shit means demon, you dumb asshole.
All right. Demon of what, though?
Yeah, for sure.
Demon of fucking
Whoa.
loose changes.
This could
bro.
be Greek.
There's Christian demonology. There's
That's what I was
Jewish
asking.
demonology. Abasithabu, Abraxas, Abziu. There's like a fucking whole
You
list
know
of.
what you just did? You just literally
I know,
opened
yeah,
up
there's a
Pandora's
portal.
box. Now there's going
Oh.
to be fucking strippers naming their fucking themselves that.
Yes, or
That'd
a
be
portal
sweet.
to another dimension.
Fuck it, let's go. I'm out.
There's Indonesian demons, shitload of Jewish demons. Baku from Japan. Do you guys think these demons know each other, or do they speak common languages like demon language, or do they all like I just speak?
They
Hebrew?
speak in squeals.
Like they're all like in a room like this and like, fuck, man, someone's calling me. I'll be right back, guys. Hold my drink.
Wait, so who calls demons though?
No, people like you.
I don't know how to fucking summon
Well,
all
you
the
just
demons.
say their names 3 times backwards in the fucking
In a
at
mirror.
midnight in a mirror.
Have you guys ever heard of the?
Bloody Mary?
We're keeping this in, by the way. Have you guys ever heard of the Bloody Mary trick?
of course.
Yeah.
Jared,
Wanna
describe
do it
the
right
Bloody
now?
Mary trick if you're just a fucking expert.
So you go into the bathroom,
And you begin to
you
masturbate.
shut the door, you lock it,
Sorry.
and you look
Wait.
in the mirror, and you say Bloody Mary 3 times.
3 times.
Let's go do it now live.
You shut the lights. You
Come
shut
on.
the lights off. You turn them back on. Maybe you shut the lights off and then say it. I don't fucking.
I think
know.
you're supposed
Let's
to
just go
shut
try
up.
all iterations. Let's give it a shot.
You shut the lights off. Say it 3 times. Turn it back on. She's like behind you.
See
Or
what
some
this clown's
fucking
all
shit.
about.
What if she's hot as fuck? You're like,
Yo.
well, damn, I ain't telling my boys either. Fuck, I'm out.
Hey, did you come out an hour later? Like, hey, did it work? You're like, nah, that shit's fucking us. I need to get to a clinic though. I don't know if I got it.
That's the best pussy I ever got.
Yeah, we'll come a couple demon STDs. Folks, we leave you with demon STDs. Dr. McDonald, thanks for seeing us.
Yeah,
Jared
man.
Feather, you're the man. Marcos Rodriguez,
God loves you, Mike.
great performance as always. And the rest of you, remember that darkness is your friend. See you next time.